Hi, so we're here with Colleen Doran, the illustrator for Trowbridge, which is a Neil Gaiman story, and we're here to talk a bit about her illustrations and about the book. So Colleen, I love the illustrations so much. There's the fact that there aren't really any strong panels, so the images sort of meld together. It feels very fantastical and looks amazing. Can you tell me a bit about that style and why you felt like that was the best way to tell the story?
Well, I wanted to tell a story that made a statement about the nature of time. And rural time is different than urban time. Urban time is very segmented, but rural time flows. And if you read books like Lord of the Rings, sometimes people complain about how long they take to get from point A to point B, and all they do is walk for the first 18 chapters. But that's the way rural time flows. It's very unstructured, and there isn't that sense of what day it is. And in fact, I live in a rural area, and we're so disconnected. We have a clock with the days of the week on it because we never know what day it is. So I wanted you to have a sense of connectedness with nature, but no sense of connectedness with segmented time.
And the tone of the story was really interesting to me because it starts with a young boy, and it feels like very storybook, but it seems like a very mature story too. I was wondering if you could talk about how you created that tone and what you think the power of it is.
Yeah, I wanted to create a Frisian between a children's book art sensibility, but in a classic children's book way, not in the current sense where a lot of children's books are told in a very cartoony style. I wanted to use a golden age style of illustration, which if you look back on them, they're very rendered and very finished, almost like gallery paintings in some way. And I wanted to create a strange Frisian between the nature of the child's viewpoint with adult sensibilities and the discomfort between what he's thinking and the danger of his surroundings and his environment with the innocence of the little boy. He's not a very nice little boy. He's not a very nice little boy at all. And I wanted you to get a sense of creepiness almost from page one, even when he's doing innocent things.
It's a very kind of interesting portrayal of childhood because it's so often sort of sanitized or like dumbed down when we write about children, and that really struck me. I felt like this really felt like, even though it's so weird and fantastical, it really felt like childhood and genuine.
It's dark from the get-go. Even when he's just reading a book, you know, the trees are craggy, and even when he's jumping through fields and is happy, you get a sense of foreboding. It's what I was trying to do, and I'm very happy it worked. I wasn't really sure. You never know until people read it. If they don't see what you tried to do, you failed, but apparently people saw it, so I'm very relieved.
Yeah, and I read that you went through a few different drafts for how you wanted to illustrate the book, right?
The drawings were pretty, well, oh boy, that's actually a good question. I did a version of it in 8 pages about 20 years ago in pen and ink, and I didn't like it. I don't think, well, first of all, I don't think it can be done in 8 pages. I thought it just chopped it right up. But I drew the new version almost 20 years later after sitting there stewing about it, going, Neil, I think I know what this story means and how to tell it properly. Even though I got the drawings right the second time, I didn't get the color right. I was going for a very modern color sensibility and take. There's a very small amount of that left later in the book when he becomes an adult, but the original paintings for it were very abstract. And I went, this ruins it. This takes everything of that children's sensibility that needs to be there out. So I ended up throwing all of it out except for about 3 or 4 pages and starting over with the color, which I'm sure Dark Horse wasn't real pleased, but after I redid it, they was like, you're right, this was the way to go. So yay.
Yeah, and the way that the text plays into the illustrations is really interesting. It's mostly sort of internal thoughts and words in the beginning. Can you talk a bit about how you sort of considered adaptation? Because I thought the way the words were incorporated was still very book-like in a lot of ways, but definitely still graphic.
Well, I kept virtually every word of the original text. I think it's only missing a couple of sentences. And what I wanted to do was bring things to the text that aren't actually there. For example, when he says, I imagine ghosts and ghouls, it's one sentence, and then I give it a splash page, which takes up a lot of stuff. There's not a lot of talk about butterflies and foxes and whatnot, but they're in the pictures. A lot of the stuff that is in the final images is suggested but not told. And I thought it would be interesting to have the juxtaposition between what you were actually told and what you actually see. Not that his words are not truthful, it's just that they're not expansive. And I thought it would be more interesting to let the pictures expand on that instead of being so literal with my pictures.
Yeah, I really love that because I felt like it didn't not necessarily change, but expanded on the book in a way that changed your pacing of the story, so you would take longer on certain moments and let them kind of fester in a really interesting way.
I got the idea to do a bunch of the splash pages from a book I did with Warren Ellis called Orbiter many years ago, and I noticed that he would just stick a splash page in there, almost like a chapter heading, except it's not a chapter heading, it's an oh wow moment. It makes you pause. It's not gratuitous. I think a lot of people throw in splash pages because they're easy to draw and they make you go faster. But these are not meant to do that. They're meant to make you stop and look around. I wanted to play with your sense of time as a reader, because the only way we can manipulate the reader is to make them feel like they need to stop and look. A lot of times you get on a comic book and you read it in 15 minutes and it's done. My job was to make you pause where I needed to make you pause and look and pay attention, and not in a way that was derived from putting in a lot of cross-hatching marks. I had to put visual content and emotional content, and I tried to do it anyway. I hope I did.
No, I think that it absolutely shines through. Can you tell me a bit about how you designed the troll character?
Boy, how did I design the troll character? The troll I drew almost 20 years ago was not the same at all. And I'm not sure what made me settle on this image. I did go through a few different versions, but once I got him. And I think I was thinking about artists like Brian Froud and Alan Lee and John Howe. They've been a big part of my life ever since I saw fairies when I was a little girl. And I love their work, and I love that sensibility, and I tried to bring it to this book. That very illustrative and dead serious look at the fantasy world, without being pretentious. You know what I mean?
I read that you actually didn't use any watercolors, but everything looks, I don't know, it was so evocative of watercolor. Was that intentional?
Yeah, it was. When I sat down and started to do this book, my intention was to do it in the same style I did the cover of Orbiter, which is a highly rendered pencil drawing painted in watercolor. And I sat down to start working on it, and Diana goes, "Oh, we want it digital." And I went, "Oh crap," because I'm not really a digital artist. I didn't really know how to do it. Now, when I did work on Tori Amos' comic book tattoo, Neil saw that and he said, "I really like this." And I said, "Well, I'm going to do Trollbridge like that." And of course, then I decided I'm not going to do it like that. It just didn't look right. So I had to sit down and figure out how to get digital look like watercolor, and it was a trick.
Well, you definitely, I was fooled. Do you have a favorite spread in Trollbridges that we could see?
Gosh, that's a good question. There are several of them I really like. I love the one with the badgers on it.
They're so cute.
My badgers. And it was so cute because Neil was dressing up like a badger for lectures for a while.
Oh, really?
That was super cute. But I love this page.
Oh, that's
one
a
of my
great
favorite.
one.
And but I love the troll. He makes me happy. There's something horrible and wonderful about him. But couple of these just walking through the woods pages just make me very, very happy. This one I love especially.
Oh, yeah.
I was trying to use color that I don't really see in comics. a muted, and you don't see a lot of this particular sensibility with aqua in a lot of comics, or at least maybe I'm full of crap and I don't know what I'm talking about. But I was worried about my color sense because I did a lot of full-page spreads, and when you use a lot of panels and a lot of bright colors in comics, this can look really garish and vulgar. But the color sense, I think, is unified, so when they bleed into one another, it doesn't look bad, I hope. Please agree with me.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's so great. It almost feels like the page can't contain a lot of these illustrations, and it gives this beautiful, like, vast world, and that's what I really love about Trowbridge.
Thank you. Oh, yay.
I hope
I'm so happy. You know, you work on something for a long time and you throw it out in the world and you're just scared to death.
Was there a strong collaborative element with Neil Gaiman, or was he kind of just saying, I trust you, take all the liberties you need, and I'll love it?
He'll let you know if he doesn't like something, and he's usually very quiet about it, but you know. It's like you don't want Neil angry with you, because when he's angry, he's quiet. But he didn't get angry, so I was happy.
There was no way, I don't think there was a way he could, like, not love it.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for talking to us about Trowbridge. Can you give us a shout out at the Mary Sue?
The Mary Sue, thank you. Thank you for spending time with us and for giving so much interesting things coverage that some other websites don't give coverage. We won't go into that.